Hello, Tides of Time here. I'll be showing you my Shaman deck that I like to play on both ladder and tournaments as of late. So let's start off with the top here. Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, Rockbiter. All removal cards, all very cheap. They're only 1 mana. Earthshock, silence, and damage, so you can instantly kill something like a Twilight Drake. You can get rid of those pesky Death Rattle effects like Karen, Sylvanas, Harvest Golem. You can instantly go through Divine Shield, so you can instantly kill an Argent Squire with this. You can deny people's draw with like Loot Hoarders and Thanoses. So that's a really nice card. Lightning Bolt, Rockbiter. Lightning Bolt gets buffed up by spell power, unlike Rockbiter, if you didn't know that already. So it's 1 mana for anywhere from 3 to 6 damage because, between Thanos, Azure Drake, Spell Power Totem, you're going to have, anywhere from 1 to 3 spell power typically when you're playing this deck. Rockbiter Totem, or Rockbiter Weapon, it doesn't get buffed up by spell power, but it does buff up Alakir's Wind Fury attack. So you can turn that 2 instances of 3 damage into 2 instances of 6 damage and do a lot of burst damage, 12 to be a matter of fact. 18 if you have both Rockbiters, but that doesn't happen very often. It's fun when it does, though. Argent Squire is basically a card I've had in pretty much every Shaman deck I've made in the last 3 or 4 months or something. It helps you stall against fast Druid decks or something because they're going to hero power the Argent Squire twice, deal or spend 4 mana on your 1 mana unit, right? And meanwhile you're building up, a board of totems or 3 drops or something, which is really nice. Also, it helps you. It helps with aggression against something like a Miracle Rogue. It synergizes really nicely with Flame Tongue and Argus. So yeah, it's a pretty solid card in this deck. Thanos, I've seen a couple pros not play this, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, and Lightning Storm synergizes really nice with Thanos. Also, Thanos kind of synergizes with Flame Tongue Totem, as it is a cheap unit that replaces itself via the Death Rattle draw card. But yeah, let's move on. Flame Tongue, Feral Spirit, pretty standard in any Shaman deck right now. I'm not going to go much over this other than the fact that Flame Tongue Totem does synergize with the Shaman hero power, and it's one of the cards that really helps Shamans snowball. But yeah, moving on. Hex, strongest removal in the game. You can kill any unit with 3 mana. It's awesome. So say your opponent had a 3 or a 4 mana Mountain Giant. This is one of the few cards that outvalues a Mountain Giant in terms of mana cost, right? Lightning Storm is Shaman's only AoE card, but it's a very strong one, especially considering you have stuff like Thanos, Spell Power Totem, and Azure Drake. So this Lightning Storm can turn more powerful than your typical Flame Strike, actually. Oh yeah, I wanted to note that Lightning Storm is the strongest card in the mirror matchup, as it does kill Feral Spirits as long as you have spell power. Gets rid of all their hero power. It can kill Unbound on its own, or it can help kill the Unbounds, as well as the rest of these high drops. Mana Tide, you'll see some people run Harvest Golem over Mana Tide, but I kind of like having Mana Tide in my deck. It helps me draw into my taunts against something like a Miracle Rogue. It helps snowball the game against something like a Control Warrior. In the mirror matchup, it helps you draw into Lightning Storms, of course, and if it's left on the board for more than 1 turn, well, you basically auto-win, because you draw 2, and your opponent will have to spend... Usually it has to spend a card dealing with that, like a Wrath or a Lightning Bolt or something like that, depending on what class they are, obviously. You'll see some people playing Harvest Golems over Unbound even, but I have Unbounds over Harvest Golem. Main reason being is Unbounds pressure Miracle Rogues more, and there are a lot of Miracle Rogues at the moment, because as they do grow, unlike Harvest Golems are simply just, sticky units. They're annoying, but they don't pose as much of a threat as a growing Unbound Elemental, right? And these are sometimes nicer in the mirror matchup. Sometimes, like, your opponent has a Spell Power Lightning Bolt, and that becomes, quite unfortunate. So be wary of stuff like that. Spell Power Lightning Bolt, obviously, it does 4 damage, so. Yeah, moving on, enough with hypothetical situations. Yeti. Actually recently put in Yetis instead of... Oh, Argent Commanders. Yetis... I didn't really have any other 4-drop other than Argus, and Argus needs stuff on the board. Yetis really, really help against stuff like Druid. They help pressure Miracle Rogues even. And Handlock, they're okay, but they do fill in that much needed 4-drop slot. You can even keep them in your opening hand when you're on the coin. Get a turn 3 Yeti. It's hard to deal with for any class, and I forgot to mention that this meta is filled with a lot of Azure Drakes at the moment, so he's really nice for that little fact. Argus, is extra taunts. It helps a lot versus burn decks, towards mid-late game. And, oh yeah, in the control matchup, so typically in control matchups you usually have at least 2 creatures on the board because you're a Shaman, and you're removing their units with stuff like this while you're using your hero power, your totems. So, you can turn 2 totems into 2 1/3s, and your opponent is not going to have a fun time dealing with that typically. And it's a really, really strong card in this deck. Of course, he synergizes really nicely with Argent Squire. Azure Drake, Fire Elemental, Black Knight. All pretty much 2-for-1s. Azure Drake, really, really, really good with Lightning Storm, Lightning Bolt, or Shock. It's very scary when a Shaman has spell power on the board. And of course, he cycles through your deck. Fire Elemental, typically a 2-for-1, sometimes can be a 3-for-1, and he's a unit you can't leave on the board. Otherwise, he's going to be dealing 6 damage to your face, and you're going to die very quickly. So he's a very, very strong unit for Shaman, and helps them really ensure that they're going to be the gods of late game. Black Knight is probably the most unique card in this Shaman deck. If you watch other professionals in tournaments, you'll see them having very, very similar lists to this Shaman deck. But yeah, Black Knight, I have this mainly to make the handlock matchup really easy. So you're going to be winning against against handlocks like 70, 75, 80% of the time, depending on how good they are, what kind of handlock they are, and whatnot. So it's amazing versus handlock, because obviously handlock are going to be taunting up because they like to be low HP and then taunt up. You know the deal. But he also doesn't hurt in the mirror matchup, because mirror matchups typically have these guys, they have Arguses and whatnot. Help a lot versus Druid as well. The only matchup it really doesn't help that much against is Miracle Rogue. But, one extra early game card to help pressure the Miracle Rogue really isn't going to improve your win rate, like Black Knight is going to improve your win rate against other matchups, if that makes any sense. And the final card, Alakir. Not only does he help you so much versus handlock, because he can get that huge burst damage in with either Flame Tongue Totem or Rock Biter, just finish them off. He helps a lot mid-late game versus something like a Zoo, because against Zoo you're typically trading all of your cards really, and to get into the mid-game. And mid-late game you're going to be wanting value cards like Fire Elemental, Azure Drake, Alakir. And Alakir is typically like a 3-for-1, even a 4-for-1 against Zoo, so that's awesome. And of course he's nice in the mirror matchup, because mirror matchup has a lot of cards like these, and totems. He can typically get a 3-for-1 or something like that in the mirror matchup as well. And he's quite pesky for warriors to deal with, because Divine Shield is not a fun, mechanic for warriors to deal with. All right, let's see how some ladder games go. Thanks for watching.